Everybody says you need millions of dollars and years of experience to develop affordable housing, but the secret is you don't, and I'm going to prove it to you. Look, I get it. You want to make a real impact through creating affordable housing, but everywhere you turn, it just seems way too difficult. Banks want your track record, investors want your capital, and state agencies want your experience. But here's the truth. After developing over 2,300 units of affordable housing, I can tell you that the biggest barrier, it isn't money or experience. It's believing you need that cash or experience in the first place. In this video, I'm breaking down the exact 4 strategies that I use to crack this code. And wait until you see strategy number 4. It's how I created over $1 million worth of value without even touching the dirt. Strategy number 1, find a joint venture partner. Realistically, this is the fastest way to get into your first affordable housing development. Now you might be thinking, Evan, why would an experienced developer want to partner with me if I have no value to add? Here's what I've discovered. Experienced developers do not need you to bring the experience or the capital. They need you to bring the value. And there are 4 different types of value that are incredibly hard to find. First, local market knowledge. If you know your city inside and out, from politicians to neighborhoods to where the next hot development area is going to be, that is extremely valuable to an out-of-state developer. Second, site control. If you can identify great sites and get them under contract, that is an extremely valuable piece of the development puzzle. I've seen developers pay 6-figure fees to someone who brings them the right site. Third, political relationships. And this one is huge. If you've built relationships with your city council member, your mayor's office, or your housing authority, those relationships are very valuable because that can be the make or break on projects. Fourth, sweat equity. Your time, your energy, and your willingness to put in the work day in, day out to push a deal forward. Most developers are juggling multiple projects at a time, and so if you can be the one taking ownership of execution, that is incredibly valuable. And here's how this played out for me. I was able to find local partners who had the experience, the capital, and the ability to provide the guarantees for the loans and the equity partners, and I brought the local relationships and the sweat equity. And it worked because they got somebody with local expertise who could push on the project day in and day out, and I got to build my track record without investing any of my own capital. But here's where most people make a mistake. They think that they have to do a 200-unit tax credit deal as their first deal, but that's not true. Strategy number 2 is to focus on smaller projects that can help you build your credibility without getting into all the complexity. Consider workforce housing. That's where you can provide housing from 80% AMI to 120% area median income. Those deals don't require tax credits, so there's way less competition or regulation that you have to jump through. You could also look at small multifamily renovations. So think a duplex, a 4-plex, or an 8-unit. Even a successful renovation on an 8-unit gives you further credibility and a track record to prove to your partners or your investors. And also, to add to this, one way to really gain affordable experience without going the tax credit route is that 8-unit, you could put a HAP contract or housing assistance payment, which is basically a contract to get Section 8 vouchers with your local housing authority. So you're still providing affordable housing, but it's without all the rules and regulations of LIHTC. Another option that most people overlook is partnering with nonprofits. Many nonprofits have great missions and already have community support, but they lack that development experience. You provide the development knowledge and the sweat equity, and they provide the mission alignment, the community credibility, and ideally, they could potentially provide the site too if they have excess land. And here's the bonus. Nonprofits help you unlock grants that you couldn't get otherwise on your own. Plus, many nonprofits already own land that are in the path of progress or in urban areas that would be perfect for redevelopment. It's a win-win because they get new facilities and you get a site under contract with a great partner that can also allow you to go after funding only available to nonprofits. The key insight here is that even a smaller project helps build your rapport, your credibility, and your track record with partners down the line as you look to do bigger projects. A quick example of this is the very first deal I did before I got into doing 200+ unit deals was I did a 10-unit acquisition deal, completely gutted it, bought the whole building for about $800,000, put about $225,000 into it. I had a partner, we did everything 50-50, and that helped me get my feet wet and build traction, build rapport, build credibility with my future partners. Here's what blew my mind when I first learned this. You're not supposed to bring millions of dollars of cash into your affordable development deals. There is capital needed for pre-development, and you will have to defer part of your developer fee, but these projects are specifically designed to be using public and private dollars, and those private dollars you're getting from investors or you're getting from banks. This is not your own capital. Strategy number 3 is to understand the capital stack both backward and forward. Let me break down how this actually works because this is the part that nobody really explains. So about 40% of your capital stack comes from tax credit equity. Basically, you're giving the credits to the investors and then they're giving you cash to pay for the development. And then 50% of the capital stack comes from your loans, so it's your construction and your permanent financing. And the final 10%, that comes from grants, tax abatements, or pilots, or any other sort of soft funding coming from your government partners. So if you need to dive into this further of how the tax credits work or how the financing works, make sure to watch my video with the link in the description below on what is LIHTC. So your job isn't to write a $20 million check on each project. Your job is to orchestrate and pull all these different funding sources together so they can all come together and finance the project. And there are so many different ways to fund affordable housing development. You've got CDFIs, which are community development finance institutions. That's a lot to say. That are specifically designed to fund things like affordable housing. Then you've got state and local programs that are offering grants or abatements or different funding to fill the capital stack for that 10%. On the federal side, you have HUD, or Housing and Urban Development, that puts out grant notices for national scale funding. And each state has its housing finance agencies, which each put out their own grants or funding programs, and also they're the ones that give the tax credits and bonds to fund the deal. For example, in Tennessee, we have Tennessee Housing Development Agency. The breakthrough moment for me was realizing that one of my most important jobs as an affordable housing developer is to figure out how to creatively go out and find and get all of those different public and private dollars and pull them together to one capital stack. Now you might be thinking, but Evan, what about all the money that it takes to get a project even to the finish line, all the pre-development capital? So this is things like your architects, your land deposits, your attorneys, anyone that is helping you get from immediate site under contract to financial closing and starting construction. That is all your pre-development capital. And depending on your project, you can need quite a bit of money over time. And really for any project, this is the first capital you need just to see if the project's even viable. But also if you do have a good project, this allows you to move toward closing. And you've got two options here. Either one, you can partner with somebody who can bring the pre-development capital and the guarantees. That's what I did on my very first deal. Or second, you can raise the money from high net worth individuals who want to have their capital go toward affordable housing. If you want to learn exactly how to raise pre-development capital, make sure to check the link in the description below. I have a video covering all of this. The fourth strategy is where things get really interesting. It's what I call controlling the dirt. It's basically getting a really great site under contract and then working on entitlements to then add massive value to that site. And here's why this works. Most developers don't want to take the time or go through any of the complexity that goes into rezoning, entitlements, or permits, or basically getting the political approvals to allow a development on your site. But if you're willing to do that work, you're creating significant value. The key is to understand three things. First, basic underwriting. You need to make sure the site can handle the number of units you think can fit on, and in terms of the purchase price, it can back into a deal that actually works. Second, what funding is available in your market? Do they offer local funding? Do they offer a tax abatement? Do they have grants? And what about tax credits and bonds? You can find all this information either at your local housing authority, the Office of Housing, or at the state level through your housing finance agency. Third, and this is crucial, is understanding and being able to negotiate longer term contracts on your land. I typically negotiate 18 to 24 months to allow time for all the entitlements to go through. And here's why this is so powerful. You are taking out one of the hardest pieces of the development process for others. You can then bring that site to another developer as a JV opportunity, or you could end up selling it for a profit. The beauty is that you're getting paid for your knowledge and effort, not your capital. Let me show you exactly how this worked with a real example from my experience. Early in my career, I found a 17-acre site that was zoned agricultural, but it was in the path of development. And the landowner wanted $1.75 million for the land. Now, I didn't have $1.75 million sitting in an account, but I knew the market and I knew the potential for this site. I got it under contract for a really long due diligence period and then rezoned it to allow for up to 240 units of housing. And this rezoning process took about $120,000 of capital to get to that point. That was through deposits, attorneys, and design team to get the plans to a place where we could get the approvals. But none of this was my own capital. This was raised all through high net worth individuals wanting to invest in affordable housing. And guess what? After the rezoning, the site appraised for $3 million. That rezoning process added nearly $1.2 million of value, and I never owned the land. At that point, I had options. I could either sell the land and make a profit, I could bring it to a JV partner as my equity contribution, or I could move forward and develop it myself. The point is, I didn't need millions of dollars up front. I needed the market knowledge, the relationships with city council, and the willingness to put in the work. Here's the bottom line. Breaking into affordable housing development isn't easy, but it's absolutely doable, even if you're starting with no money and no experience. The key is figuring out what value can you add. Remember, you do not need to have everything figured out on day one. Start building relationships, find your JV partner, identify your site, and learn the financing landscape. Most importantly, you have to take action. Imperfect action always beats perfect inaction. If you're serious about breaking into affordable housing development but don't want to figure it out on your own, we have built Affordable Development Mastery for you. We give you the exact system that I use to build over $500 million in development. Click the link below to learn how we can help you get your first deal closed, because the world needs more people like you who are helping create more affordable housing, and I want to help you make that happen.